I'm still in Sydney.
And where are you, James, right now?
I'm in San Francisco,
Okay.
California. But yeah, that behind me.
His name, I don't remember anymore. It's 7. Oh, it's 8 o'clock. So
Next declaration. Everybody seems prophet. No, we have just a moment.
playing Lego.
Yeah.
So the name is Hope of Garden or the Garden of Hope. Which way?
With
Oh, guys, James is really.
Hi.
James is really into the park, maybe, no?
I'm in my garden.
This is not a visual background.
No, it's real.
What time is it there?
It's 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as usual, we'll start. We are starting our episode with talking about my background. What is this? This is a garden in Milano, a public park. We call it a public garden because its dimension is so small, it's so lovely, and also because it was a private garden before to become a public garden. It's close to my office. I love it a lot. And why I choose the park? Because finally in Italy, David, Nene, and James, finally we can go to the park. Lockdown is a step-by-step getting better. And Giardini di Porta Venezia, this is the name of this park, is super in this season. And also, we need to meet people because I love a lot this opportunity technologies is giving us. Really, during these people, I'm doing a lot of things. I'm meeting a lot of people. For example, now I would share with you my screen. For example, yesterday with MBNB, a Congolese colleague you met some weeks ago. With him, we have just founded this group on Facebook.
Yes, è vero, really.
I invited you.
You invite me, I didn't answer, so I have to do this.
Architecture Congolese landscape. Just in 2 days, we collected 180 people. So technologies are giving us really big opportunity to meet people like in this moment with you. But also we need to meet real people. And I choose for you, as usual, I have to choose for you.
Georges Brassens.
And this song I choose for you today is this one.
You are really romantic.
Really romantic, as usual.
What happened to you? What happened to you, Giuseppe? I don't know you in that way.
Because this song tells about people met in the park and have a flirt and kiss one each other on the public benches. This is real life, and step by step we are coming back. I hope we are coming back to real life. And also real life means see into the reality the effect of our work. So to honor our Superman guest of today, David, I choose to show him this building into this park.
Yes, Portaluppi Planetarium is made by Portaluppi.
I could start showing him this. I could start showing him this picture just cut, just grabbed from Claudio Galli's blog, Urban File. This
Yes,
is.
so I stop you a while because one of my my problem is that those two lamps designed by Portaluppi that are missing now, and there are two horrible lights. And I asked to the Portaluppi Foundation to design the lamps and find someone that can pay for the.
Ah, good.
Next episode, we have to invite Alessandro.
Scandurra.
Yeah?
Okay.
You agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Too shy. It's quite shy.
Yeah, but I can speak with him. I can speak with him. What is this? This is a building so iconic. So I choose this for my new friend David Money, and this is the plan. This is the incredible section because this is a huge fake. It's a planetarium, no, where you can go inside and stay inside. You can see the infinity of the universe, no, as we in this period. What is this song? This song is to move back in our hearts to the reality. So with George Brassan, I am leaving my speech and leaving so you can work. Gregorio speak French perfectly, so he can translate for you better than me.
You want a translation?
Something for us, if you want.
Well, he speaks about two lovers in a public bench. Wait, let me check exactly. So wait, because
En se disant des je t'aime pathétiques, ont des petites gueules bien sympathiques. Quand la Sainte Famille marche.
My French is not.
It's about a green public bench, and so he describes the whole situation with people walking in the sidewalks, and let me see, absurdité car la vérité Well, it's complex to translate. It should be done properly because it has a lot of metaphors. But essentially, he speaks about lovers who kiss each other in this bench.
With the mask is difficult.
saying a pathetic "I love you." It's disant des je t'aime pathétiques. They have weird faces, and they sometimes they say horrible words to each other. But anyway, the whole family, father, mother, daughter, son, and the Saint Spirit, the Holy Spirit, they all would like to be as they are, in love and kissing each other. Anyway, this is more or less the music. It's a very well-known music in the French speaking world. Everyone knows it. But, yeah.
Thank you, Greg. So, thanks. Are you frozen?
I'm sorry?
James?
Yeah.
Can you hear us? Because you seem frozen.
I think the connection maybe is a bit bad. Can you hear me?
Okay. Now I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you introduce your new guest?
Yes, of course.
So David may be for Luisa because for us David is nowadays one of us, no? Because this is the second episode, and I hope the third, the fourth. I would like to have him as guest every episode. But for Nana is the first time, so you could introduce both of them.
David and Donna, or just David? Just Donna. Let me introduce Donna. Both of them. Okay. So.
Sorry, friend. So at the meantime, this time I can drink Italian wine.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Me too.
So Donna is a curator and organizer for many art activities, cultural activities. She's based in Oslo, Norway. And she does this not only in Norway, but sometimes between Norway and China. She's also into organizing jazz festivals and also making films. So I think let me hold on a second. She's so some of the project that she did was the Ispan drama co-production of The Lady from Sea. And also, she organized and helped to promote the Oslo Jazz Festival and the Norwegian International Film Festival. I think we barely missed each other in Fujian last year in Xiamen, when Xiamen's Chinese Film Festival was taking place. She was also there promoting Scandinavian films and collaboration between the Scandinavian and the Chinese filmmakers. So she's very talented in many things and somebody who brings different artists and different people together. And I think she has a lot to say, but maybe there will be a special session for her and some of her colleagues later on. And David is a very prominent educator, like I introduced last time, David Mahoney, and from now is actually the dean of a very, very special university based in the New York tri-state. It's called the King University. It's one of the few universities, I think, that has true campus in both New York, in the States, not just New York, in the States and China. And the campus in China is 100% parallel in curriculum and faculty taught in English, the same program. So, and also they have a Rome program. So the students are really getting a world experience and education, which is so rare. So rare these days. David is also, I think, to me, David is also a very important thinker, that his thoughts about architecture and education and also the world at large has had an influence and impact on me. And actually, just last week after David was on, I had a chance to talk to some of his students who are graduating out of King University, and their work is amazing, I would say. And very hands-on, very sort of artistic in this time when digital is taking over so many things, and we seem to be losing touch of the hand and the relationship between the hand and mind. So with that, I give it back to you, Pepe.
Yeah. I'm really, every episode, step by step, this series is giving us every episode with a lot of surprise, no? And so I'm very glad for these guests. I just resume also for James who Luisa Ferro is. Luisa Ferro is not only my friend, is not only an associate professor in Polini, but as you told before, As David is dean in this very special faculty, all of us, me, Luisa, and Greg, had the possibility a lot of years ago to work together in this Italian Special University. It was an adventure. It was like the Star Trek Starship, a place with a few people, but involved in something special. We work on different issues, and Luisa, I remember, shown me, for example, the Piccionis works, the Piccionis research in Greek. Now she's continuing involved in archaeological studies in architecture. She's working in Pompeian architectural research. And so today we have really three super nice guests. But now I would like to hear David Moni and everything he can show us and tell us. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Pepe and James, and again, it's my pleasure to be back with you. I like this group. I look forward to this. It's a treat. You know, I've been doing this long enough. I've been doing education long enough to have seen some things. And I remember when I got out of school, there wasn't much building going on in America. It was very slow. The economy wasn't very good. And then, of course, I got busy, and then sometimes it stopped. And lately, of course, it's been so busy, and there's so much work. And as much as I want architects to be busy and doing work, I do note that sometimes when things are slow, there's more thinking about what architecture is that goes on, because you can't do anything else. And that's, I think, a kind of welcome change, may be difficult for people in terms of employment, but better for the intellect and for the ideas of what it is that we're trying to do here. And I think we're about to go through that in a big way. I think there's going to be a major shift in terms of the amount of work and the kind of work and how people look at it. And some thinking is probably overdue. And I welcome that. As I told you last time, my first job when I got out of school was for the Institute for Architecture and Urban Studies in New York. And that was a place where people thought all the time and talked all the time. And it was a great place to be as a very young, just starting out architect and teacher. You know, to get on the elevator in New York and look over and there's Aldo Rossi on the elevator with you to go up to the 18th floor. It was very special, and be able to engage with people there was huge. I've been sort of around and all over the place, but what you don't know about me is I've spent a fair amount of time in the Netherlands, specifically in Rotterdam, starting in about 2003, and from about 2003 to 2009, if you added up the amount of time I spent there, it was probably close to 2 full years of my life were based in the Netherlands, and in Rotterdam. And I went there to do research on one particular topic. I'd seen a single sentence in Bart Lootsma's Super Dutch book that talked about something called Architecture International Rotterdam. And I wanted to find out more about that. And what I'm going to show you now is some of that research. Let's get this up. So I was curious about this thing called Architecture International Rotterdam, or AIR, and what it was. So I went to learn about it. And fortunately, many of the materials are in the Netherlands Architecture Institute library. So I was able to find out about this. But it tells the story about architecture in Rotterdam and why it has been so much a focus over the last generation or even more. And it starts, of course, with this, which was the destruction of the center of the city during the Second World War and the aerial bombardments that took place there just this time of year, about 80 years ago. And here, this is actually from the site of the Netherlands Architecture Institute now. Some of you probably know that, looking at the level of destruction that happened and how so much of the city was destroyed in the Great Firebombing that took place there. And what was a kind of fairly vibrant European city became something else for a period of time, and then had to be rebuilt. And you can see the extent of the destruction in the aerial photograph on the right. The area in white is the area that was destroyed and was then cleared for the city. It's about a square kilometer in size. It was very, very extensive. And it meant then the city had to be replanned. And of course, that planning used more of an American model with an emphasis on streets than a European model with an emphasis on spaces. But that's not the primary point I want to talk to you all about today. It really has more to do with Rotterdam's role as a port and its role in the overall Dutch economy as one goes forward, and how the vibrant port, again, in the center of the city, had been destroyed in the war, and then what would happen after the war. There's the Hotel New York you can see on the left. Some of you probably know that great place. So one of the biggest changes that came after the war was the fact that the old port, for all its destruction, actually was too small for what shipping was going to become. And there was a recognition of that. And so the whole Europort complex started, following out from Rotterdam out to the North Sea along the Maas River. And a very, very extensive new development has taken place that's put Rotterdam, what is it, either second or third, I think, in terms of shipping in the world today. And the old port then was largely left behind. The city built back first its industry, and here's a great building, the Groothandelsgebouw by Maaskamp of 1953, basically a merchandise mart that encompassed various kinds of offices, providing places for people to conduct business and trade, which of course has been a mainstay of the Dutch economy for such a long period of time. Even before they were doing housing, they were building what they needed for industry and to make things work. You also have this wonderful tradition of Dutch modern architecture that existed before the war, the Van Nelle factory, the Burgpolder apartment buildings. And then just after the war, Bachmann and Van den Broek's Lijnbaan and some of the housing that was coming along in the areas behind the great pedestrian streets of the Lijnbaan. But by the 70s, this kind of emphasis on social housing and a kind of uniformity of the social housing had become a flashpoint in discussions about what architecture should be. There was some real pushback about this and the kind of what was perceived to be the kind of blandness to it. Even though the attempts to respond to that, like Piet-Blom's cube houses, were seen as somehow perhaps not all that they could be, more a kind of overreaction to the problem of meaningful solution to what could ultimately take place. Here, Karl Weber's paperclip building, a kind of interesting party development in a lot of ways, but again, was not perceived to be as serious potentially as it could be. And I put in an image of the Café de Unie Ouds project from the late 20s that was rebuilt in this period. Now, this is really the key for me and what was so interesting. Again, Rotterdam's whole center city was gone after the war. And how do you build back an economy? Well, you use your resources like industry and transportation and shipping, but how do you build back a kind of tourist economy? Not like Amsterdam, which was still intact and could count on that economy. But the people in Rotterdam put together a cultural program to try and build a new sense of the city and bring people to it. And it started with a series of film festivals or festivals, I should say, that you all know. The film festival, of course, poetry festivals, there were dance festivals. All of these things is a way for at least periods of time to bring people from far away, bring them to Rotterdam to engage with culture. And the Rotterdam Arts Council was the main driver of this activity. And by the late 1970s, these had been successful enough that they said, let's try a festival for architecture. And that was the genesis of the Architecture International Rotterdam organization, and what they called the manifestatie, the manifestations, that were basically festivals of architecture that took place every few years from the late 70s on through the first part of the 21st century. And I was really curious about these in terms of how they were carried out and what they meant to the city, and what worked about them and what didn't. They were done initially on a kind of shoestring. There was not much money to do it, but they were wildly successful. And I'm going to talk about why they were successful in a minute. But they had done, as a kind of precursor, in 1977, they invited 3 critics to come and look at the city and provide a detailed critique of the architecture of the city. Kenneth Frampton was one, Stanislaw von Moos was another. And they came, and the only building they really thought was appropriate for the post-war period was that Großhandelsgebäude by Moscont that I showed you earlier on. That was the one building that they thought had architectural quality. So the perception was that there was a void and it needed to be addressed. And where better to start with that than in the center of the city, which is the old harbor, the Kapenzai, and it's rebuilding because it was no longer needed. And so the Rotterdam Arts Council put together a program. And then the key thing that they did is they carried this out with a whole work program. And I love the graphics here. It sort of looks like R. Crumb comic book graphics in a way, doesn't it, from the 60s and 70s. But they put together a program for what was possible, just a conceptual planning for what might be possible with the old harbor and what could be done. And the key thing they did was to invite 5 international architects to come to work on this. And they were invited to come for around a month and a half to spend time in Rotterdam, to set up a studio there, and to do their work in public. To sort of have people wandering in from the street to see what was going on, and to present them. And the architects were very distinguished. Ungers was invited, Kleihus, Peter Walker. And since this came up last week, I love these drawings of Aldo Rossi.
Wow.
Richard Meyer was also invited to come, and he showed up, and he realized there was no real commission in it. It was not going to turn into a building, which he hadn't understood, so he went home. It wasn't going to turn into anything meaningful, so he left. But it left these 4 architects sort of working for a summer. This is now 1981, on these various projects, and then presenting them in a series of public exhibitions and talking about them. And that was it. That was just the 6 weeks of work, this presentation of different ideas, different ways of thinking. 2 years later, a different kind of manifestation, air manifestation, took place, looking at Japanese architecture. Toyo Ito was the one who actually organized the exhibition of this material, which was pretty interesting. And then a few years after that, it was Spanish architecture. So this was reaching out to the wider world, but always from the context, really, of trying to understand how it would apply in Rotterdam and in the Netherlands. As one of the planners said to me, we wanted an international look at very local problems. That was the goal, bring the international to put the focus on the local ideas and how they could apply these and make it very public. So a lot of materials were printed and disseminated and involved in a whole series of things. And of course, this is a view from some years ago of that area of redevelopment with new apartments, of course, the Erasmus Bridge, and buildings by Meccano, Olamak, Renzo Piano, and others as part of that redevelopment there. what the city did after the manifestation ended, the planning office pulled together sort of the top young designers, and they took all of the schemes and basically assimilated them all to understand what they thought would be the best course of action. And then over basically the next 2 decades, were able to put that into effect. But again, done in a very public way, in a very interesting way, that really transformed what had been a derelict and abandoned area. Now, the budget for the first manifestation was something like 80,000 guilders, which was about, what, 40,000 US at the time. By 1988, this had become such a success that they basically put on a citywide festival that extended beyond architecture and involved theater, music, dance, photography. But they put the person who'd been in charge of the architecture manifestation in charge of all of this. And the budget now was 2 million guilders, not 80,000, 2 million guilders. And this became a basis then for much of the rebuilding of that city in that period of time. There were then a whole series of other manifestations, and I'm going to save those for another time maybe to talk to you about. What I would say about them, just very briefly, very quickly, they always looked for areas that were overlooked in the city planning process. Areas that had been forgotten, not seen. So abandoned infrastructure was one of these, the old train tunnels, various smaller squares that were located in and around the city that were often afterthoughts. And some very notable architects worked on these things. And let's see, yeah, this is some of the arts manifestations that occurred as part of that 88 festival. And interestingly enough, that included a temporary Kunsthal that was in the old marine terminal that had 2 effects. It became the program then for the Kunsthal that was built by Oma and Koolhaas, not very far away from this, and also initiated a new water taxi system up and down the city, was to bring people to the ferry building. And here you see that photo biennale there. And the routes as people moved through, again, were choreographed with public art to provide a kind of very processional architectural experience for the people who were involved with all of these things. And what has always fascinated me about these is the degree to which the public were always a part of the discussion. As one person said to me, you know, we're Dutch, we pay for criticism here. You want that feedback and that engagement from the public audience, but this was a very conscious attempt to build a program that would ultimately transform itself into shaping the physical landscape of the city. And so that's what it did. So that's sort of the first half of this talk, and I'd be happy to get into the later sections of it with you, perhaps on another occasion when it makes sense to do that. But I hope that gives you at least some of the indication of the things that I'm interested in, and particularly where architecture is able to think deeply and engage with that public audience.
That's amazing, David.
Yes.
Really, I learned a lot. It's really cool stuff.
What?
What was Seppi holding up?
And there is also the architectural movie festival. I think it's part of this this thing, and it's probably the best festival in terms of our cinema and architecture.
David, I have a question. So this whole thing, which took over in the course of 20 years, or maybe even more than 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
What is it politically that kept the continuity of this? I mean, because I think it accumulates, and you need sort of the political agenda for it has to be continuous through different administrations, and and things like that. And now we see the world like nothing's continuous.
Yeah.
No government can agree within themselves. Just can you talk about how was it achieved such a continuous and sort of cumulative effort?
Yeah, that's a great question, James, and I think it sort of speaks to the difficulty of maintaining these things. So it starts with the Rotterdam Arts Council and the fact that they have had successful festivals, the Poetry Festival, the Film Festival, the Dance Festival, these kinds of things. So they have credibility. They find a willing political audience that is invested in the future of the city. But they also find the right people to manage the manifestations. And one in particular, Ryan Vanderloop, who was the first of these curators, and he was followed by Annemie de Volder, who became the second curator of the air manifestations. They were key to make that happen. There's a bit of a tragedy here as well, because in 2003, there was a fire and the air offices were completely destroyed. So all of the records that were there at the time were gone. Fortunately, a lot of the material, the graphic material had moved to the Netherlands Architecture Institute, so that's still preserved. And then Ryan in particular had been very circumspect about preserving in his own files the records. I actually went to the city archive, and he had 88 boxes of materials from the stations that are in the city archive. So there was ability to duplicate that. But it was also a little bit running out of gas, and this will take me back to my days at the Institute. I said that was my first job. It also, I was there when the Institute folded. It went out of business. I literally was the person who turned out the lights and locked the door when the Institute closed. Okay, that was my job, and I was losing my job. That was the only job I had, and I had a new baby. What was I going to do? So I went to see the chair of the board of directors for some kind of guidance. That was Philip Johnson. So I went up to see Philip. And Philip had been, he'd been easy to engage with, and he'd been very friendly and helpful to me. And he actually ended up getting me a teaching appointment at Harvard after that. But he said to me, I'll never forget, he said, every organization has a life, and the life of this one is over. He said, there'll be another organization that will take its place. I mean, I think, the discussion about oppositions, one can see a life in oppositions, right? That it probably wasn't best for it to just keep going in a way. It had a certain point of view, and at some point that ends, and then it's time for something else to take its place. And I think AIR was getting to that point.
What year are you talking about? Because so as I told you, Luisa Ferro was in my PhD committee, and I think the only PhD right now until now about oppositions and the political agenda of the IAUS. But then Gandelsonas and he continued oppositions and IAUS in a way, in a very slightly authorized way.
Right.
So you're talking about the first end of the IAUS, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
84,
something like that.
Right. And then even I think Kevin Kennan tried to recreate a different version of the Institute. Yeah. And it's just something else. I think it needed a different name. It needed to be its own entity. It was a shadow of what the Institute had been as the Institute. It was the same thing with AIR. It was time for something else to take its place.
But also, don't you think that, in a way, I was writing right now an article about this crisis, the economic crisis of the end of the 70s in the US, where there was no job essentially for architects. And the article was Jean-Louis Cohen asked me to write about this exhibition called Ideas Model, made by the IAUS. I don't know if you were there at the time.
That's before my time there. Yeah.
Okay. And so this was the worst moment in terms of economic crisis and so on. So I talk a lot about this also in the PhD, but I think also that politically it was very rich, right? And in the middle of the 80s, kind of, and this is related to a question I wanted to ask you about Holland, that the Netherlands, I mean, it's our neighbor country here in Belgium, and I know a lot about them, and we keep deep contact with them. And Kenneth Frampton always talks with deep sadness about the closing of the Berlage Institute, and relates that with the neoliberal turn that Holland kind of really embraced so deeply that they closed even the cultural ministry after the recession, 2008. And right now in Europe, they are the bad guys in a way, saying that they don't want to help certain countries, you know, like Italy, that we are lazy, you know, kind of racist discourse in a way. And really the port and the import-export neoliberal agenda, you know, this thing of not producing anything in a way, against manufacturing, and for only commerce, and only be a platform and not be a producer of things, in a way that this neoliberal turn that in the last 10, 15 years really changed Holland in a way, even if it's social core in a way that was a tradition in Holland. And even their cultural, you know, they're not producing anymore what they used to produce in the past. And I don't know if it's related to this also, the end of this Air Festival.
That's a great observation. I absolutely agree with you. You know, what there had not been a political assassination in the Netherlands for 350 years until the one was killed, and then, you know, the emergence of Geert Wilders. These were whole new areas for Holland to try and deal with, and I think, you know, I talked to my Dutch friends, and they're just so dismayed by what happened. But that's what I meant about the political.
Sorry, I had some problems.
Yeah, the political circumstances when Air started were so supportive.
Sure.
And you know, you lose that, and suddenly you're really swimming upstream to try and get something good done.
Because I think in the US, in a way, that's what I think, but I would love to interview you one day about this, because and I'm sorry I never contacted you during my PhD period, but I don't know, I think there is also this change in the US also in the mid 80s, where the economy started artificially to boom, you know, with the Reagan administration. It's like if they, you know, Peter and Kenneth had to kind of stop thinking in a way and start acting and building. And maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there is kind of a turn there. I mean, everyone went back to business in a way, you know, to live.
Peter left in 1983, and at some level he thought he was going to go be an architect.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it didn't happen, at least not in a conventional way, but I think that's what he thought. And instead he made his living as working through the schools in a very effective way. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know, the end of my question is, don't you think, and the question is to everybody, don't you think something will change now, historically, in this neoliberal turn? I mean, my Dutch friends are really saying we have to change. And it's a very deep debate there. It's interesting because they are feeling, it's like if Holland was capable of feeling moments of history. I always had this impression, because they are a commerce country. And it's like if they were feeling that the neoliberal turn is over in a way, with COVID killed it. I don't know, in a way.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just saying, listen, while I was listening what you was saying, that I was thinking that really after these 2 months, looking, for example, the presentation David given us, this word seems, this present seems more close to the far past than the close past. Because the latest past, it was so boring. Everything from the recent past seems so far from us, because this present is really revolutionary as the 70s, as the 60s. After the Second War in Italy, if you think, everything seems to be different. Of course, every process need years, need decades to be developed. But this present is really so fast, and the past is really so past. But as Claudio and Ellie know, now at this moment, we need what we need, Claudio?
All we need is love. No, this is not.
As you know, I am more revolutionary, and
timeless song. I wanna change the game like modern architecture. John Lautner coming your way. I know you like this beat, cause you've been doing that thing. You wanna turn it up loud.
This guy, as you know, born in England 22 years ago, super young. She has a lot of success. Starting from she was 16, maybe. This is pop music, and in this song she's talking about future nostalgia, like Walter Benjamin in Angelus Novus. And in this song, she's talking about John Lautner and modern architecture. So really, I suppose we are living, I guess, in a really special moment where when everything is possible. So some structures, even some lost, even some conquest seems so far from me. I missed Luisa a lot in these years. I stopped to teach in Polimi 3 years ago. I was lecturer from the 2003 until 2017. I stopped in that moment. We had a lot of rules, and Luisa is an adjunct professor, so she knows the rules better than me. The double blind revision, your CV is made by publication. You have to print 2 books for years. A lot of rules.
They have to product, to
Yes.
print.
No, you can explain better than me, no? But what I would tell you, that all these rules is important, but this reality is more significant than all that rules. And this girl, these 22 years old girls, born in England from a couple of guys escaped from the Kosovo War. This girl is talking us about John Lautner. Okay, this is our world, a huge melting pot where everything is possible. And I feel you are the perfect guest for this pop series. So, Luisa.
I don't know. Very optimistic. You are optimistic. Sei ottimista. Yes, probably, maybe it's a particular moment. Young people are looking at our masters in different ways, and this is yes, I agree with you. But I don't know if it is a so positive moment. This is I
don't know if it's positive, but it's sure revolutionary.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Sure revolutionary, and we are living this present. Nene, what's up there?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Yeah, actually, I prepared something from, because I've living in Norway for more than 15 years. But, you know, I grew up actually from Wuhan.
Wow.
Yes, Wuhan.
Yeah.
all my parents are living still in Wuhan. So I know all the situation and all the histories about this 3 months or 4 months, what happens in the world, from China to all of the world. But they are quite healthy and still very optimistic about the future. I really want to share something with you. I prepared some videos after this corona virus outbreak from China. So I connected with some of the artists from both Norway and China, some trumpeters. They made a new music to give in some expression about the support the Wuhan situation, and then we made a music video. Made a co-production film from Shanghai, Wuhan, and Norway. And you can also find some elements about the architecture's characters about Norway. So I can share this video first with you. And you can just give us, you guys can give us some comments about what the impression about this music video. It's very new co-production. Let me try to open.
This is the perfect place for this presentation.
Yeah. I have to find, because I'm so fond of all kind of music, theater, drama, and we have done a lot of co-production between Nordic artists and Chinese artists, and we made some success in some of my favorite theaters in Norway. So here is the喂。爸爸起了吗？喂，爸爸起了吗？屋里都还好噻？
我们都蛮好。你是待在屋里没出来？
武汉都还好噻。
你们在这路都还好噻？
我们也还蛮好，一直在屋里没出门，就是蛮想你们。
我们也蛮想你们。过得细啊，照顾好自己，莫急。等武汉好了，路也好了，再回来吃热干面。
好，我们等到。
好的。
Because Claudio this evening have an appointment because, as you know, this is not our usual time. So this evening we don't have Michael and also Claudio have to leave. So we'll see.
If you have the chance to share the video, it was very, very nice. I would. I'd like
now we are solving this problem.
Okay, so I'm sorry because I have people to take care. So
people or your cats? People or your cats? Because after 2 months, maybe your best friends should be your own cats.
Yes, of course. They supported me. 3 cats.
Yes. Next episode we will have as a special guest all of them.
One cat was walking in front of me. You didn't see. You didn't notice.
Talk with them and display them that we are waiting for them with a special image, one for each of them. Okay.
Yeah, one of that.
Of course, one cat, one speech. Okay.
The cat is on the table.
The cat is on the table. I read that cats are not very happy for this lockdown. They don't want them.
Are you sending me the file?
Sorry?
Are you sending me the file? Are you sending the file?
Me?
Yeah, if you send the file, I can share for you, or I could add music on your video. Yeah.
That could be. It's a large file. It's a large file now. So
you don't have you don't have a link like Vimeo or YouTube, right?
I have the private account from Dropbox with this large file in Dropbox. So then I may need to find out what happened about the audio.
Nana, maybe you can just play on your computer speaker and put your earphone and microphone close to your computer. And we can just hear, even though low quality, we can hear a little bit of the music.
Ah, I see. This can be, let me try. Maybe I can try another, one of my favorites Theater's promo. I will try this again and see whether you can hear the sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bye for now. So see you next.
Claudio.
Claudio.
Ciao.
See you, Claudia.
Yeah,
Ciao.
see you.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you.
You should have just, Nene, to unplug your earphone.
Yeah, I have already done that.
Yeah, screen sharing is a mystery. Never really works.
Can you hear the sound?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay, great. Yes. That's one of my favorite theater because we have done tremendous work last year. I initiated a kind of co-production of Ibsen, adapted from Ibsen production named The Lady from Sea. And we, together with this Shiden Theater, made outdoors venues performance for 10 shows last year. I can show some pictures about this production as well. You see, I will give you later about the background of this this theater. They have 2 venues. One is indoor. This promo is their indoor building. It ranked the top 10 theater architecture in the world in 2016.
But where is that?
Actually, this theater is located in South Norway, named Kristiansand. Yeah, it's a South National Theater. It's a performing art center.
Really interesting. Really interesting.
And I found that the amazing thing in Norway is architect, especially the cultural architecture, they always include something about nature. For example, the stones, the ice, the wood, all about nature. So they're quite talented to connect all the buildings with the surroundings and with nature. So the people can make a lot of comfortable feelings when they sitting in the theater. And they are using very best the equipment and the facilities in the building. So that's why I'm so fond of or so keen to sitting in the theater to see different kind of performances. I'm really enjoying it. And about this theater, they have also another venue inside of the mountain. It's a 50 kilometers away from this building. It's in the mountain, and they have every year, especially in summertime, they will perform a huge Ibsen production in that place. I can show.
Yeah, the relationship between places and people is made by architecture, no?
Yeah, yeah.
The Facebook group I shown you at the beginning, I decided to call it Architecturists of the Landscape, because really when we use the word architecture, we means, as Aldo Rossi wrote, not only the external aspect of the things, but the organization that people, that human beings are able to give to the world. So every time in this episode, at the end, we start to talk from different point, from different image, from different things. But at the end, the main issues is always the same. The relationship between architecture, human fact, and nature, and natural world. But in the background of David, I saw last time, I'm seeing now, this nice drawing where like in some metaphysical landscape, yes, exactly, as in Arduino Cantafora job.
It looked like something by Cantafora, or not?
What is this? Because Jesus seems architecture, and architecture is not so far from the idea we have about landscape, something so harmonic, something so gentle, even so geometric.
That's a painting by Michael Graves.
Ah, okay.
All right. Who you know, Rome transformed Michael Graves. His time in Rome at the American Academy transformed him completely. And even to the end of his life, he was painting. Every weekend he was painting these landscapes, these imagined landscapes, always with buildings though. But they are Italian landscapes that he was creating, and finding a place, a relationship between the architecture and the nature of his mind.
A common friend, me, and a friend of Luisa, our one of our master, Angelo Torricelli. A lot of years ago, meanwhile, we was involved in this research about writing in architecture. He remember told me, because every time we write about architecture, we have to explain what is architecture and why we are writing about architecture. No, if everywhere, every time we have to renew. We have to renew like promise, no? This is in the same in our series. Every episode, I like to explain why we choose this title for this series. No, we choose the Hope with Garden. Because in this period, we need hope. We need hope. Because in front of the virus, we are totally scared. But also, hope is not enough. We need also to find a new balance with the nature. Because the title of this series is Hope with Garden, because we was playing with this, like some announcement about real estate, no? imagine a home with garden. No, like garden is a benefit, is more than without garden. But we have an huge, imagine, fantastic planetary garden, and with currently nowadays more than maybe in the past, we have to renew our promise. We have to renew our effort to find a balance between architecture and nature. And this is not so banal. This is not just with some curves, with something not so formal. No, this is not the solution. Or maybe for somebody it could be solution. Alvar Aalto working a lot with the curves, finding a real nice solution. But the perspective you have in your background, David, is an example that geometry and trees could be part of the same landscape, and we have to understand which is the secret. Every time when we do a project, we have to try to find the secret again, no?
Yes.
Well, the very last of the architecture manifestations, the air manifestations, was called Hortus Conclusus, the solitary garden for one. And it was to discover the kind of individual garden spaces in Rotterdam, to make places for just one person to come and find themselves. Maybe that's something I could talk to you about in a future session. But listen, I have my college award ceremony starting in 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to go and go give my awards to students. But I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed being with you all again, and to meeting some new friends, Luisa and Nana. This is great, and I look forward so much, Pepe, to coming back, okay?
I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I'm very happy.
Thank you, David.
I hope
So
to
am I.
see you soon.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Grazie mille. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Oh.
Bye.
Thank you for the good class. Thank you.
Ah, già, class.
Thank you.
I was thinking, class, it's 9 o'clock. No, it's not 9. Sorry. It's not in Italy.
And Luisa, your next time with us could be David again, and you should show me again
What you want me to show?
the Piccioni stones, but also
Balance between architecture and nature. Okay.
but also your recent research in Pompeian architecture.
Okay.
It's a promise.
But when next Thursday or when?
Next Thursday, I already planned a special episode dedicated to Mantua.
Ah, già, è vero, Mantua.
That Luisa know very well, because
My tragedy of Mantua.
yes, because unfortunately, James, when we come in Mantua with me, was in a terrible hurry and arrived after Michael. But a few days ago, we was in Mantua with Michael, and Michael visited a small but really nice, lovely project Luisa designed in the center of the town, in the most important place of the town, make the small archaeological area ready to be visited.
I would love to go back to see those Alberti buildings that you showed me.
I remember.
Yes, it was great.
I remember, James. I have a picture of me, you, and Lou, and you young, and you young in front of the San Sebastiano, and I remember James was telling me, so radical.
Yes.
Come back. Also to have a special lunch with Luisa and our friend in Mantova. And as I was telling before, next episode we will have Matteo from Mantova Mantova Architectural Festival with Lu. You help me with Chinese friend, please, my friend. Lu Yang, to talk about the Mantova Festival of Architecture. So, Luisa, you are welcome. But also, I would invite you for a next, also for
okay, to speak about
a special space with David to talk again about your work and about the relationship between ancient architecture and nature, even in these so famous places, no? Because about Pompeii, about Parthenon, always we are people are talking about the beautiful of the column, the beautiful of the painting,
but not about the relationship.
Exactly.
And the disposition of all these.
And you are master. You are the master. Can explain us this.
Maybe we could try to solve the sound problem of the video of the Wuhan.
Yeah, I would love to see that again.
Yeah, I will present that again.
Than sending the whole video, maybe we have to try to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, I will do that. And I prepared actually more than 5 videos which I can share. But with the limited time, I can make this in next episode.
Well, maybe in every episode we can.
Yeah.
Nana, as James know, we are trying to build like a common house for friends and our friends. So I hope you'll.
你能不能在院子给我搭一个帐篷，里边放一张床，让我。
Hello.
Also, my daughter went.
Sophia, say hello.
She wanted to see
hello. So beautiful. So beautiful.
爸，你能不能在外面，在这个院子里？
So James, you can come back.
然后把钢琴也搬到这儿，然后把笔呀、画儿呀，然后全都搬到帐篷。
It is a lemon tree, James. I've got in the back
no,
lemon tree.
This is it's let me show you what this is.
This is for my daughter. I can't. I have to wait the end of
This is a pomelo tree.
Ah!
Very big.
Oh,
it's a pomelo
nice.
tree. And here we have
wow.
This is a Chinese fruit, I guess.
Pipa.
Espore.
Pipa.
And then here we have lime.
Yeah.
Lime, yeah.
And then here we have lemon.
Lemon.
Wow.
So we plant everything we eat.
Yeah, very beautiful garden.
We use it for
hope for garden.
food.
Hope with the garden.
But since we've been quarantined, this week we're planting the oregano and basil and all the Italian spices. So we're planting that this week.
Is this your private garden?
Yes, it's
wow.
You know, in California, every house has a small garden. It's a suburban.
Oh.
Suburban is the house is not big, but they usually give you a back garden between the neighbors. So we use it for organic food, you know, for cooking.
Nice.
Anyway, before we leave, as James knows, when David is with us, me and Gregorio are totally paralyzed because he is so so important. So but now we are in more intimacy. So I can show you.
Prize.
I can show you. What I just found.
What is it?
Oh my goodness.
What is it?
It's a skateboard.
Uno skate?
Oh my goodness.
Skateboard?
This is a
Skateboard?
skate.
The surf
Skate to improve my surf skill on the concrete. But concrete is harder than water. So I have to solve this problem.
Are you using it in Milano?
Yeah.
Of course.
In the traffic jam with skateboard?
No, I prefer a surf park. No, traffic jam in Milano is very dangerous, even for pedestrian without skateboard.
Well, now Milan will become the world capital of bicycles. It seems.
Newspapers.
Milan is
Right.
bicycle revolution. Yeah.
Nana, Luis.
Hi.
See you soon.
Yeah.
See you soon.
And
Next time I will be much more prepared.
Yeah.
To these meetings.
James, of course, sooner or later we'll join with you there. At the meantime, I can say you bye-bye drinking because in California you have garden, but in Italia we have special Sicilian wine.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, special Sicilian wine in Milano. Yeah.
Hey.
Oh.
Very nice.
I have cheap Pinot Grigio, like a real New Yorker.
Greg, we have to buy wine and then save for our friend because we really hope at the end of this series, maybe not at the end, maybe as soon as possible, we could plan a special party in Wuhan.
Yeah, that would be great.
Welcome.
Wuhan.
Yeah, I think the ideal would be to go to Rome and then Wuhan, because today Rome was quoted. It changed Michael Graves, but I can ask. I can add it to change. So we start by Rome, then go to Wuhan. And,
but before go to Wuhan, I should like all of you to come to Norway. I will show you around about all the landscapes and all the amazing architectures in the nature. That will be nice. I will show a lot of pictures later on.
I don't invite you to come to Brussels because it's a bit depressing, but
no.
Gregorio, you live in Brussels.
No.
You live in Brussels.
It's not true because he's still too Brazilian, to be in Brussels because his soul is Brazilian. So than Brussels, but Brussels is very, very nice. Anyway, see you soon, and I will wait for you. And thank you, our ladies. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Nana. And thank you.
Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you. Thank you for invitation.
Ciao.
Bye. Have a nice night.
Bye.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.